There was a yellow sticky note stuck to our toaster. Not on the fridge. Not on the table. On the toaster. As if that spot would somehow soften the message. Going out tonight. Don't wait up. Also, don't touch my leftovers. Cass. That's all it said. No heart. No smiley face. No explanation. Just ink on a sticky square next to the crumbs of the breakfast I made her that morning. It wasn't the note that did it. It was what was beneath it, an unfamiliar receipt, barely tucked under the toaster's corner. One she clearly didn't mean to leave behind. Room 418. Palmdale Inn. 2 guests. 1 night. Paid in cash. The timestamp? 37 minutes before she told me she was exhausted from back-to-back client calls. I didn't scream. I didn't even sit down. I just stood there in the kitchen with the smell of burnt toast still in the air, replaying every late night, every time she flinched when I hugged her from behind, every locked phone screen flipped face down. And then, like it was part of some sick comedy routine, my phone buzzed. Cass. I'm going on a date tonight. Try not to be too jealous. Face-blowing kiss. No explanation. Just that. I stared at that emoji like it was a bullet. She sent that knowing I'd find the note. Knowing I'd put it together. It wasn't carelessness. It was a message. A challenge. I typed back one sentence. Leave the key under the mat. Your things will be on the lawn. No reply. I started gathering boxes. One for her closet. One for the bathroom. One for the keepsakes we once called memories. Then I paused. Picked up a 4th box. Labeled it Truth. That's the one I filled with what she didn't know I knew. Copies of texts, hidden cloud logins, a small USB drive from our neighbor that had everything. The truth wasn't going to stay in a box much longer. And I hadn't even opened the video file yet. The USB wasn't labeled. Just black plastic, scratched, like it had been floating in someone's junk drawer for years. I found it in a paper envelope stuck between our recycling bins earlier that week. There was no return address. Just a handwritten note that read, He parks 3 blocks over. Tuesdays. Room 418 is not the first. I'd kept it hidden in my sock drawer ever since. I didn't open it right away. Maybe part of me didn't want confirmation. Maybe I already knew, but I needed someone else to say it out loud for me. But after that message on the toaster and that smug emoji she texted me, my patience snapped like drywood. So I plugged it in. There were only 2 files on it. One was a video. The other, a folder named Look Closer. I opened the video first. It started grainy, like from an old security cam. A hallway. Narrow. Beige walls. Low lighting. I recognized the carpeting. It was the Palmdale Inn. Kasara was in the frame, walking fast, arm-linked with someone I didn't recognize. A man. Tall. No face visible. Baseball cap pulled low. She was laughing. Not smiling, laughing. Like she was 17 again and sneaking into a movie. The timestamp? 2 nights ago. At one point, she pulled him by the shirt collar and pressed him against the wall. Her hands weren't exactly subtle. They kissed, quick, almost rehearsed. Then she swiped the room key and disappeared into 418. I paused the video. My throat was dry, but my eyes didn't sting. Not yet. Then I clicked into the Look Closer folder. That's where things flipped from betrayal to something else entirely. Inside were 7 screenshots, each one from different nights, different hotel rooms, different cities. The earliest was from almost 9 months ago. In one of them, I recognized her outfit. It was the same black blouse she wore to our anniversary dinner. She told me she spilled wine on it and had to change before dessert. Each photo was from a different camera angle. Some looked like they came from someone watching from a car. Others? Taken from inside hotel rooms. That realization made me sick. Either someone was following her and the other guy, or someone had access to those rooms before or after. And then came the final file, a screenshot of a text conversation. Cass. He's clueless. Thinks I'm working late again. Might just keep this up till spring, stack some extra cash, then I'll figure out the rest. Unknown contact. You mean ditch him? Cass. Maybe. Depends on how clean the exit can be. It hit me harder than any video ever could. Not the affair itself, but the fact that I was a plan. I was being phased out like a bad rental contract. She wasn't just cheating. She was strategizing. I sat in the dark for a while, listening to the toaster click and cool down. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was curious. Who was filming this? Who sent me the USB? Why now? And why the message under the toaster, like it was all part of a performance? I pulled out my phone and opened my contacts. I scrolled past her name and tapped on someone else's. Someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Grady Bucknell, our old neighbor. The one Cass never liked. The one she called creepy every time he waved at her across the lawn. The call connected on the first ring. Yeah, he said. No hello. No small talk. Like he was waiting. I got the drive, I said. He exhaled. Took you long enough. I blinked. You knew? No, Grady replied. I didn't know. I watched. I hadn't spoken to Grady Bucknell since the summer before last, when he invited us to a barbecue that Cassidy refused to attend. She called him a creep, said he stared too long, said he gave her a weird, neighbor watching from the blinds vibe. I told her she was being dramatic. Now I wasn't so sure. Watched what? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Grady didn't answer right away. I heard him shift on the other end, maybe light a cigarette. He always smelled like smoke and bitter coffee. Finally, he said, You think I sent that drive for fun? That was just the part one could send. My mouth went dry. You have more. I have everything, Emery. You just never looked up. I glanced toward my front window instinctively. The blinds were still slightly open, tilted from where Cass once snapped at me to let in some light. Across the street, I could see the Bucknell's front porch. Motionless. Dim, quiet. It looked like any other boring house on the block. Start talking, I said. Grady took a long breath. Remember when your Wi-Fi kept cutting out last winter? You asked me if I was having the same issue. Yeah. That wasn't your router. That was her. Using a portable hotspot. Didn't want her searches showing up on the home network. My stomach tightened. You tracked our internet. No. I tracked her. See, my back office window faces your driveway. I've got one of those old tripod lenses from my Navy days. Not for spying, just habit, you know? But then, I started seeing things. Patterns. He went on to explain how every Tuesday night, like clockwork, Cassidy would leave around 8:45 p.m., always claiming to go to the gym or to meet a client, and return between midnight and 1 a.m., hair slightly damp, lipstick faded. At first, Grady didn't think much of it. But then, a few months ago, he saw her get into a gray truck that wasn't registered to anyone on our block. He noted the plate. Traced it. Belonged to a man named Roman Lyle. Divorced, 41, 3 towns over. Wait, I interrupted. You ran his plate? I'm not stupid, Emery. I didn't send you that USB because I was bored. I sent it because I knew she was getting bolder. And when people like her get bold, they get sloppy. You still haven't told me why you care. There was silence on the line for several seconds. Then Grady said something I'll never forget. Because you're not the first husband on this street she's done this to. I stood frozen, my skin prickling. What the hell are you talking about? She used to help Trevor from 2 houses down. Remember him? Big guy. Ran the landscaping company. After his divorce, she offered to help him with his redecorating. They were working on his kitchen for weeks. You think he really needed 3 weeks of tile advice? I remembered Trevor. Nice guy, kind of quiet. He moved out fast after the split, said he wanted to be closer to his sister in Wyoming. I never thought twice about it. Cass doesn't just cheat, Grady continued. She plays roles. She inserts herself, gets sympathy, gets close, and when she's done, she disappears with what she came for. And you? You were the long game. The fallback plan. The pension. I couldn't breathe. All this time, I thought I was the one building a life. I thought the cracks were mine to fix, the silences mine to fill. But I was a placeholder, a utility. And now, Grady, the neighbor I had barely spoken to, the one Cassidy dismissed as a nuisance, was handing me the blueprint to her entire deception. What do you want from me? I finally asked. I don't want anything, Grady said. But you're not going to like what's coming next. There was a pause. Then he added, She didn't go on a date tonight. She went to meet someone about you. After the call with Grady, I just sat in the living room, staring at the space where her shoes used to be lined up by the door. She had a system. Heels to the left, flats in the middle, boots under the bench. The only thing left now was a single sandal, flipped over, like it had tried to escape, but didn't make it out in time. I needed to clear my head. Think. Breathe. So I walked upstairs and into the guest room, my makeshift office, the place where I used to edit spreadsheets and lose hours inside endless company reports while Cassidy took time to recharge in the bathtub downstairs. But tonight, the room felt different. Her old laptop sat on the desk. The one I thought she'd stopped using months ago when she got a new one for her design work. She told me the hard drive was corrupted. I almost recycled it last week. Now, it was open, plugged in, lit. The screen was dim, but not locked. Either she forgot or didn't care anymore. I moved the mouse. It jolted awake. An email draft filled the center of the screen. The subject line was blank, but the message, it wasn't addressed to me, or even to anyone I recognized. It read, "He's starting to ask questions. If this blows up, I'll handle it. But if anything happens to me, you know what to do with the backup folder. Don't contact me unless it's through the rental line. He still doesn't suspect the inheritance account. The moment it clears, we're done." I froze. There were too many things in that message I didn't understand, but every part of me knew one thing. I was in the middle of something I was never meant to survive. Rental line? Inheritance account? Backup folder? I opened the email app's folder structure. There was one marked Archive buried deep, but password protected. Another one named J under her starred folders. I clicked. It was full of correspondence with a contact listed only as JL, short bursts of communication, some financial jargon, others cryptic like, "Flight confirmed. Room will be clean. I'll bring the signal blocker." And another, "Do not leave traces like last time. This guy's slower but not blind." This guy. They were talking about me. I felt my hands tighten on the sides of the laptop, the plastic frame creaking beneath my grip. My whole body was buzzing, but I didn't know if it was panic or rage or just my nerves collapsing in on themselves. How far did this go? This wasn't a fling. This wasn't a marriage falling apart. This was a setup, maybe even a heist. I suddenly remembered something Grady said on the call, how Cassidy inserts herself, plays roles. And now here I was, the idiot husband who didn't realize the person he slept beside each night had contingency plans and encrypted email trails and secret message threads about clean exits. I ran downstairs, unlocked the filing cabinet where we kept our shared tax documents. The drawer stuck. Cass had jammed a folder in crooked, like she didn't care about organizing anymore. I yanked it open. Inside, buried behind our joint returns, I found a manila envelope I'd never seen before. No label. I opened it. Bank slips. International wire instructions. All signed by her. Sent to a brokerage account in the Cayman Islands, under a trust one didn't know existed. Every signature matched hers. Every transfer was small, just under reporting thresholds, but frequent. All from our joint savings. Over $92,000 had disappeared in the past 11 months. And I hadn't noticed a thing. Until now. I stood up too fast and hit my knee on the corner of the filing cabinet. The pain barely registered. My mind was spinning. Cassidy wasn't just planning to leave. She was planning to vanish. And whatever she told this jail person about me, it sounded like I wasn't supposed to be in the way when she did. It took me until almost 3 in the morning to fall asleep. Not because I was tired, but because I was numb. I lay on the couch, fully dressed, one hand still clutching the manila folder I'd found, as if letting go of it would mean this all wasn't real. The sound of our ticking wall clock kept reminding me that hours were passing, but I felt stuck in a moment that wouldn't move. Kasara didn't come home that night. And somehow, that was the least surprising thing. When I finally woke up, if you can call 30 minutes of light dozing waking up, the house felt foreign. Silent, hollow, like it knew it was about to be emptied. I went straight back upstairs. The guest room. Her old laptop still open, still glowing with that draft message she never deleted. I reread it 3 times. Every word dug deeper than the last. But then I remembered something. A strange detail that suddenly struck me with full force. 2 months ago, during a weekend cleaning frenzy, I found a small locked box wedged behind the water heater in the garage. Cass had waved it off when I asked. Said it was some old stuff from college, just notes and junk, nothing interesting. I'd almost believed her because she said it with such ease. I hadn't pushed. But now? Now I knew better. I went into the garage in bare feet, stepping over bags of unused winter clothes and an old yoga mat she claimed she was getting back into. The box was still there, wedged between insulation and the metal edge of the heater. Small, black, maybe 8 inches wide. I grabbed a flathead from my toolbox and pried the lock. It didn't take much. Cass never expected me to be curious. Inside, there were 3 things. A stack of crisp $100 bills. At least $5,000 worth, rolled in a tight rubber band. A fake ID with her face, but a different name, Eden Blackwell. And a burner phone. I turned it on. The screen glitched briefly and then displayed a string of missed messages. None from saved contacts. All were from numbers with no names, but the latest thread caught my eye instantly. Unknown. It's not safe if he starts digging. You need to close this. Kasara, relax. He's passive. Always has been. If it gets messy, I'll flip the narrative. He's the emotional one, remember? Unknown. Don't underestimate men when they finally feel small. That's when they do stupid things. There were voice memos too, labeled only by date. I tapped on one from last week. Her voice, recorded in a whisper. Meeting with my aunt went sideways. She asked about Emery. She's suspicious now. I think she might warn him. If she does, Plan B goes into motion. Keep an eye on the transfers. We don't get a second chance with this account. Her aunt? Cass's family barely spoke to me. Her mother hated confrontation, and her father only ever smiled when he was drinking. But her aunt, Miriam, was different. Quiet, sharp, and always had a stare that felt like she knew something you didn't. Suddenly, I remembered something I had brushed off at the time. Just last weekend, Miriam had stopped by unexpectedly while Cass was out running errands. She brought me a loaf of that dry banana bread I hated and asked if we could chat. She didn't say much, just small talk. Asked how I was feeling, how things were between Cass and me. I gave her generic answers. She smiled, nodded, and said one strange thing before she left. Sometimes people bury bodies, Emery. Not always in the ground. At the time, I laughed it off as one of her weird sayings. Now I wasn't so sure she was joking. I pressed play on the next voice memo. Cass again, this time more agitated. I told you not to text me about him. If this phone gets found, it's over. The lease ends next week. The account matures in 9 days. After that, I'm gone. Gone. Just like that. No confrontation. No divorce. No talk. Just disappearance. She was planning a life without me. And not just emotionally. Legally. Financially. Physically. But what was that account she kept referencing? What was maturing? I needed to know. And if Miriam was onto her, then I needed to talk to the one person who might have known the full truth before I did. I grabbed my keys, threw on a jacket, and headed for the front door. But before I opened it, I saw it. A shadow, standing just beyond the porch light. Motionless. Not Cass. Not Grady. Someone else. Watching. I didn't open the door at first. I stood there, behind the curtain, breath held, eyes fixed on the figure just beyond the light. He wasn't moving. Not pacing. Not fumbling with a phone or pretending to be lost. He was standing like someone who'd been there a while. Like someone who expected me to come out eventually. He wore a hood. Not suspiciously, not low over the face like in a movie. Just enough to hide in the shadows cast by the porch bulb. One gloved hand was holding something. Something small and rectangular, like a notebook or a folded envelope. I couldn't see his face. I should have called someone. But I didn't. I opened the door slowly, just enough to wedge my shoulder through. Can I help you? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he took a slow step forward and held out the object. I saw now that it was a thick envelope, sealed, with my name written across it in sharp black ink. Not printed. Handwritten. He didn't offer a greeting. Didn't explain. I'm not the enemy, he finally said. His voice was low, steady, neutral. You'll want to read this inside. Before I could ask anything, he stepped back down the porch and disappeared into the dark like he'd rehearsed it. No car door. No sound of retreating footsteps. Just gone. I shut the door and locked it, every bolt, every chain. My hands shook, not with fear, but anticipation. My world was already upside down. What was one more twist? I sliced open the envelope with a letter opener and pulled out a thick stack of papers and photos. At the top, a note. The clock isn't what you think. She started planning this 2 years ago. The money's just a symptom. The target was you. Ask her about Belrose. Ask her about 2016. Don't go to the police yet. They won't believe you. They're not supposed to. I dropped the paper. My mouth went dry. Belrose. It was a name I hadn't heard in years. It wasn't a place. It was a man. A quiet client Kasara once mentioned in passing when she was still doing freelance design work. She said he was weird, reclusive, paranoid about tech. She helped him redesign a private cabin up north, got paid in cash, and then never brought him up again. Until now. I pulled the photos from the envelope. My hands went ice cold. Kasara, standing next to the man I now recognized as Belrose. Aged, bald, wearing glasses, a scar across his temple, walking together down a hallway. Not at a cabin. At what looked like a private vault facility. I knew because the walls were lined with individual biometric lockers. In another photo, she was signing a document. He was handing her a red USB drive. The timestamp? June 2016. We had just moved in together that summer. I remembered how she was gone for 3 days. She told me she was helping her sister through a breakup. I never questioned it. Next photo, Kasara, alone this time, standing in front of a safety deposit box with the words Vanth Trust Account printed on the wall behind her. Then one more, blurred, as if it had been taken in a rush, of her entering a black sedan, the driver's face pixelated beyond recognition. I spread all the documents across the coffee table. Beneath the photos was a packet of printed emails, some redacted, others left untouched. I scanned subject lines. Secure clearance protocol initiated. Asset transfer authorization. Containment strategy if subject becomes reactive. I stopped at that one. Subject. That was me, wasn't it? I flipped to the full message. It was written by someone under the name JL, the same initials from the secret email folder on Kasara's laptop. We can't afford for him to suspect the scope of the plan. Her proximity to him is essential. If he deviates, we control the narrative. If he resists, the Vanth clause gives us legal cover. I didn't know what the Vanth clause was, but I knew what all this meant. This wasn't just about infidelity. It wasn't just about stolen money. It was something larger, something orchestrated, and I was the center of it. My wife didn't just betray me. She was assigned to me. It was still dark out when I parked outside the facility. A narrow row of storage units just off the freeway. No signage, no front office, just a keypad on a rusted pole and a chain-link fence crowned with barbed wire. The kind of place you drive by 100 times and never notice. The kind of place you'd bury something you never want found. The envelope the stranger gave me included a printed access code and one line. Unit 409. Vanth. You'll know it when you see it. The code worked. I drove through slowly, headlights off, my heart pounding harder the closer I got to the back row. Every unit looked the same. Faded blue, roll-up doors, dust lining the concrete like a veil. But then I saw it. Unit 409 had no number on it. No lock. Just a symbol etched into the metal. A shape that looked like an hourglass, but broken, jagged, split down the middle. It wasn't graffiti. It had been etched from the inside, sharp, deliberate, like someone had tried to mark it without being seen. I hesitated, hand on the handle. Every instinct in me screamed to turn around. But I opened it. Inside, I expected old furniture or hidden cash. Instead, I found something worse. A replica of my life. No lights, no shelves, just rows of boxes, all labeled with dates and tags that made my blood freeze. EM 0917, work history. EM 1020, financial patterns. EM 0419, emotional triggers. EM 0616, intake notes. Each one handwritten. Each one about me. I opened the nearest box. Inside, printouts of my email history from 2016 to 2020. Personal. Work. Even deleted messages. My jaw clenched as I flipped through conversations I barely remembered typing. Some from my old Gmail I hadn't logged into in years. I found photocopies of my driver's license, medical files from my old therapist, and transcripts from phone calls I never knew were recorded. I opened another box labeled Intake, Audio. Inside was a handheld recorder and a bag of mini cassettes. Tucked behind it was a photo. Me, sitting in our backyard 3 summers ago, barefoot, reading on a hammock. The angle was wrong. It wasn't from our house. It had been taken from above. Someone had been watching me. For years. Documenting me. Studying me. Why? I pulled another envelope from the box marked sensitive material. Inside was a letter on unfamiliar letterhead that read, Client evaluation, Emery Kellen. Status, passive compliant. No suspicion. Integration successful. Client. Integration? The final line on the page sent a chill through me that no betrayal had yet reached. Recommended phase completion date, Q4 2023. Subject unaware of embedded operator's true purpose. Embedded operator. Kasara. My wife wasn't just lying to me. She was assigned to me as part of something bigger. Something structured. Coordinated. There were no love letters. No gifts. No signs of guilt. Just files. Cold, methodical data. Like I was a profile in a project, not a person in a marriage. And then, on the far side of the unit, sitting on a small table, was an old metal lockbox labeled simply Vanth Directive. I pried it open. Inside was a phone. Old. Dusty. But charged. It came alive in my hands. It had only one number saved under the contact name, jail, and only one outgoing message, scheduled, but not yet sent. He knows. I didn't go home. Not yet. I drove instead to Miriam's house. Kasara's aunt. The one who'd brought banana bread and riddles. She lived in a stone-sided bungalow on the edge of town, where the fences were old and the trees felt like they were listening. I knocked, and she opened the door already holding a cup of tea. It was like she knew I'd come. "You found it," she said simply. I didn't ask how she knew. At this point, I didn't have the energy to be surprised. Inside, she motioned me to the chair by the fire and sat across from me. Her eyes weren't sad. They were calm, focused, like she'd been carrying something for years that she was finally allowed to set down. "I tried to stop it," she said. "I never wanted you in this. But I was overruled." I stared at her. Overruled? By who? What is this? She sipped her tea and exhaled. "There's a group. They call themselves the Vant Consortium. Started as a think tank, turned into a behavioral development initiative. They find candidates, people with specific psychological profiles, and match them with embedded partners. The idea was to test the limits of influence, control, emotional manipulation. And you, Emery, you were one of the earliest long-term subjects." My throat went dry. She never loved me? "She doesn't even know how to define love anymore," Miriam said softly. "But that doesn't mean everything was fake. They recruited her when she was in debt. Told her it was research, not cruelty. But it went further. Deeper. Eventually, she was in too far to back out." I couldn't speak. "She did care," Miriam continued, eyes fixed on mine. "But she chose the program. Until recently. Until she started breaking rules. Like leaving the laptop unlocked. Dropping the receipt by the toaster. She wanted you to find out. That was her exit. Why? Because she knew she couldn't lie to you forever. And because she knew they'd come for her if she didn't finish the assignment. And now?" I asked. "What happens now?" Miriam stood and walked to a drawer. From it, she pulled a second USB, the twin of the red one in the photo with Belrose. "She left this with me 2 days ago," she said. "Told me if anything happened to her, to give it to you. Everything is on here. Every recording. Every file. Every lie. But also her final message." With trembling hands, I plugged the USB into my laptop. One file, titled simply, "For Emery." Kasara's voice played softly over the speakers. "If you're hearing this, you already know. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I'm not asking for it. But I needed you to know something. They told me you were just data. But you weren't. You were the only real thing in my life. Every time you brought me tea, every time you tried to fix what you thought you broke, I saw what love looked like. Not the kind they study. The kind they can't control. I'm leaving them. I'm leaving this. If they come for me, don't follow. Just live, Emery." That's the only thing they couldn't predict. The audio cut out. Silence. But not emptiness. Miriam looked at me. "She's gone. I don't know where. But she didn't take the account. Didn't cash out. Didn't disappear with your money. She left it all behind." I looked down at the USB, the blinking cursor on my screen, and realized for the first time in days, I wasn't scared anymore. I was free. I left Miriam's house as the sun started to rise. The clouds glowed pink at the edges, like someone had peeled back the night. I took a deep breath. The kind you don't notice you've been holding until it finally lets go. Over the next week, I packed what I wanted to keep. Not just clothes or furniture, memories. The kind no one had files on. I closed our accounts, moved to a small town in northern Oregon, and changed my number. The program? I never heard from them again. Grady disappeared. Miriam stayed quiet. "Kasara, I don't know. But sometimes, when the wind moves just right or I smell cinnamon and oat milk, I remember that not everything was fake. Not everything was controlled. Somewhere along the line, love happened. Even if it broke both of us. And me? I got out. Not bitter. Not broken. Just rebuilt. And finally, my own,